3:30, I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 97 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Fisheries and Oceans. This meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders. Pursuant to a request by more than 4 members of the committee under Standing Order 106, paragraph or subbracket 4, the committee is meeting to discuss a request to undertake a study of the concerns surrounding Elver fishery in Nova Scotia. I open the floor for debate. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, and thank you, committee members, for enabling this discussion today. I'd like to begin that, over the last 2 months, we've had sort of sporadic opportunity to ask some questions of various officials about their plans to deal with the upcoming season of the Elver fishery in hopes of avoiding all of the issues that we saw in my community and throughout Nova Scotia and New Brunswick last year. For those who are watching that don't know what an Elver is, it's a baby eel, very expensive fish. It's actually the most expensive fish there is. They sell for about $5,000 a kilogram, and they're caught at the mouth of rivers as the rivers enter the sea in Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Maine principally. And they come in at night, for some reason, on the high tide when it's dark. And they're caught by using a dip net or what's called a fuke net. And there are, I believe it is, 12 DFO licensed harvesters for this fish. The season is a quota-based season, so as soon as an individual harvester gets their quota, they're done. Even though the Elvers start arriving in Nova Scotia in March, although the season generally starts in April and goes till June. There are Elvers still on the rivers in July on some of the rivers. They come at different times of the year. In New Brunswick, they come in a little later than March. So the various license holders are assigned to specific rivers. So depending on when the Elvers come in, depends on when they get the catch. And yet last year, after only 18 days of the season, as we know, the Minister of Fisheries shut down the season for the license holders. And while poaching continued on the rivers. But really it became a big public safety issue, more so last year than the previous couple of years. And I just want to outline sort of what it was like. Picture yourself that on the beautiful riding that I represent in the South Shore of Nova Scotia on St. Margaret's Bay, the bay that Peggy's Cove is on, that you bought your dream house, and your dream house is right at the mouth where the river that may be 10 to 20 feet wide enters the sea. You might have a little beach at the front of your house and a little Cape Cod house. And you enjoy the tranquility of all that and all the fun that comes from having both access to the fresh water when the tide's going out, as the river comes in, and the salt water as the tide comes in. And many years into your ownership, a few years ago, about midnight, because that's generally when people fish Elvers, when the tides are coming in, people start showing up on your property. They start crossing your property. They park on your property, their trucks, and they're there all night. You go out and you ask them what they're doing, and they tell you they're fishing, even though they're on private property. You ask them to leave, they refuse to leave. This goes on for a few nights, starting in March, only a few weeks from now. It'll happen again in March. So because they're fishing, you phone DFO. DFO's numbers for their enforcement is available on the web. It's available on the book. And you phone them up and you leave messages because it's at night and there's nobody there. Nobody ever calls you back from DFO. Then you see nobody ever showing up from DFO even though you've called. So you phone the local police detachment. Usually in my part of the world, that's the RCMP detachment. You phone the detachment. You start phoning the RCMP and you start asking the RCMP, will you please come and deal with these people who are trespassing on my lawn? Because when you wake up in the morning and they are gone, there is an incredible mess. They fish with lights on their heads, so they're bothering you at night while you're trying to sleep. They're making noise. In the morning, there is remnants of food, remnants of used toilet paper, remnants of what used toilet paper is used for on your property every night, 4 months. You phone the RCMP so many times that the RCMP says, if you keep calling me and complaining about these people on your property, I'm going to come and arrest you for filing too many claims with the RCMP. A few miles down the river, in Hubbard's, a single mother is there with her teenage daughter. The same thing's going on in her property, except they're wearing khaki gear at night. One of her neighbors is walking her dog. This has happened last spring. Asks what they're doing. They said, we're fishing. They said, you can see the DFO sign here that says you're not fishing. They take out a pipe and beat him. Further down the river, rival gangs of criminal organizations actually start firing guns at each other for turf on the river. Meanwhile, the legal license holders cannot get on the river. And the legal license holders are assigned to specific rivers, and they have cameras, motion-activated cameras, on all the legal spots. Not every river in Nova Scotia is a legal spot, but almost every river has elvers. And they have cameras, and they're motion detected, and they take live pictures and live video. So they know when people are there during the day and at night. And they never see a DFO enforcement officer ever at night when the fishing of elvers is going on, both legally and illegally. Every day last year, from the beginning of the season, I got a copy of the emails sent from the license holders to the Minister of Fisheries, to the Director General of Fisheries for Nova Scotia, to CMP enforcement every day, of the photos of the individuals as well as identification of their vehicles. Never once did anyone return anyone's calls. Never once did CNP ever do anything about it. This was going on on a river, the Sackville River in Halifax, 3 minutes from a DFO CNP enforcement office. Complaints were made, nothing ever happened. A licensed elver fisher has what's called the FOOCnet, the other way of doing this, has GPS trackers. This happened in Shelburne County last year. Has a GPS tracker attached to his net. He goes to the river, his net is gone. So he turns on the GPS tracker. He says, oh, I can see it, I can drive, it's at a house. He drives in his pickup to the house, drives up to the house, and there's the pickup truck in the driveway with his net in the back. The owner of the house comes out and says, what are you doing here? He says, I'm here to pick up my net. So it's not your net, it's my net. He said, that's my net. DFO requires me to have my license number on the net. There's my license number. The guy goes into the garage, takes out a baseball bat, comes out and starts beating on the guy's truck, smashing his windows and his mirrors off. Then he goes into his truck, backs it into this guy's truck, pushes it out on the street and takes off. Goes to another place, damages a truck. This gets reported to both the police and DFO, the locations and where the net is. DFO never went to charge the person or get the property back. It was stolen right out of the river. This goes on every night for 4 months while the elvers are running. And it's getting worse. The industry has been meeting with DFO. The industry has been meeting with DFO and just asking them for their plan for river enforcement. And they won't do it. So they won't share it. And in fact, in meetings in the last week, they have said they're not going to provide any more support legally than they did last year. So given all that, I think it's an urgent time for this committee to do a study and call these agencies to account before this committee as to why it is they are not increasing their enforcement of law under an enforcement of the Act. So with that, I don't know if we circulated the motion or it's being handed out. I would propose that given these reports concerning the illegal elver fishery in Atlantic Canada and violence that occurred in the 2023 fishing season, that should say elver fishing season, the committee agrees to hear plans prepared by the federal government to prevent further incidents of violence this fishing season. The committee agrees to hear testimony from the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans and the Canadian Coast Guard, with departmental officials and responsible law enforcement, obviously CNP, the Canada Border Services Agency, and the RCMP, and that the committee draft a letter at the end of the study with its recommendation to the minister invited, named here, and that the committee agree to begin this study in the next meeting. And the rationale for the next meeting being next week is that there are already illegal nets being placed on rivers today. And the season will not start for a little while, probably till April. The minister hasn't announced when the season starts yet. But the urgency to ensuring that there is an enforcement regime to protect law and order on the river is necessary now, and we need to have the officials now, and that's why the urgency on this. I don't think, from my part of the world, that in the fishery, that there is any more pressing enforcement issue than this currently. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Morrissey, you've got your hand up.
Could we suspend for a few minutes? I agree with everything that Mr. Perkins said, but could we spend for a minute or two while we review his motion?
I realize the motion was just distributed, so we'll recess for a few minutes.
Monsieur Morrissey. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je vais passer à Madame Barron. J'ai terminé mes remarques. Merci pour la suspension. Je pense que Madame Barron... Bon,
It's on mine, so I'm not sure what happened.
wrong channel, sorry.
French in the other, so now I'm really confused. If you could start again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Thank-
Chair, I've got a problem also on my end. Can you just keep talking, please?
Yes, I'm hoping translation has it sorted out to the correct channel right now for translation.
Okay.
It looks like I'm getting a thumbs up from Mr. Callaway. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Morrissey.
Mr. Chair, I believe Ms. Barron is going to read in an amendment to the motion. So I'll wait, I'll defer and make comment after that.
Ms. Barron, did I see your hand up? Ms. Barron.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wanting to get it documented so that we can send it out to everybody. But just wanted to make a suggested a few amendments to the motion that's been circulated, and thanks to Mr. Perkins for his work around this. The amendments that I'd like to make is, let's see here, the first thing. So it says that given reports concerning the illegal elver fishery in Atlantic Canada and violence that occurred in, I would like to add the elver fishery in the 2023 fishing season, and then comma, illegal harvesting and widespread misunderstanding of Indigenous moderate livelihood rights. And then continue on with the remainder of it as is, except for one additional addition of deputy minister instead of minister.
Where was the last piece to be inserted? The
The-
elver fishery in the 2023 fishing season.
Yes, so that given reports concerning violence that occurred in the elver fishery in the 2023 fishing season, comma, illegal harvesting, comma, and widespread misunderstanding of Indigenous moderate livelihood rights. And then it goes on as previously written.
Président, je vais faire un petit appel. C'est lu très vite et l'interprète.
It was read very quickly, and the interpreter didn't have a copy of the amended motion, so I was not able to receive the interpretation.
Si on peut reprendre.
If you could start again, maybe.
Again,
Madame Barron,
fully and
Yes.
clearly as to where it's being inserted.
It's the Newfoundlander in me, we speak quick. Sorry. The other thing is we can circulate an email version if that's helpful, because I realize it could be confusing. But I'll try again. So that given reports concerning violence that occurred in the elver fishery in the 2023 fishing season, illegal harvesting, and widespread misunderstanding of Indigenous moderate livelihood rights. And the remainder remains the same, except for an addition of, in front of minister, deputy.
And where, in which section of where it says minister, because there, the Minister of Fisheries is mentioned, and then it's recommendations to the minister, so the minister is in, the word minister is in there twice.
Sorry, Chair, that would be the first minister. The first reference to the minister.
Am I understanding you're recommending a change to it being the deputy minister who is invited instead of the minister, or in addition to the minister?
A change to the deputy minister.
Instead of the minister.
To start, but she doesn't have to be here within 5 days. We can start with the other witnesses. She can come at the end.
How many days are you looking at?
Well, we've got next week,
Through
and
the-
we've got the
through the
week
chair,
in.
please.
Sorry.
Mr. Perkins, Okay.
So I know it's sort of tradition that ministers appear first, but it's not a requirement. In my view, it's fine if the minister comes at the end. We've got 2 sitting weeks left, I think, in February, next week, and then we've got a week break. And then we've got another week when we come back that's partially in February, I think.
No, next week, next Friday, we begin 2 weeks of constituency break, I'm pretty sure. A week?
1 week.
There's only one? Are you sure? Okay, all right.
So within that, I think within that time frame of those sitting weeks, I'm sure the minister can find time to be here sometime in that.
You're still just inviting her.
And we're just inviting her, so
Ms. Barron?
the rest of it I'm fine with, especially the grammatical change.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, I was only adding the deputy part because I thought that there was unanimous consent amongst everybody that was the best path forward, but I'm okay either way, whichever is easiest. The beginning part was the part that I wanted to see the addition to, but whether it's the minister or deputy minister coming to the meeting, I'm fine either way. So if it's the preference of the mover of the motion that we keep minister, I would support that and ask that we add the remainder that I've spoken to.
Okay, I'm not sure if the clerk has an accurate idea of what was proposed, or if Ms. Barron can provide it, or if it's been circulated. Just pardon me?
Mr. Chair, it'd be great if it could be circulated.
Okay, if we could get it circulated then, please. Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through the chair. So we will, if we have our first meeting on this next Tuesday, it would have to be with the deputy minister because the minister would not be available. But I would want Mr. Perkins to give us a sense as to how many meetings, in fact, we will need to deal with this, given that the time sensitivity that he indicated, that things are already starting to happen, and we would want some resolution proposed to the minister sooner rather than later. So, what would you see as the number of meetings necessary to deal with this?
Mr. Perkins?
Obviously, that depends, Mr. Chair, on availability of witnesses when and availability of resources. So the simplest thing, I see probably 3 different ways to go at this that I'm prepared to see if the clerk can figure it out, which is one is that our meetings start in our normal meeting spots next week on this issue. So the 2 meetings next week would be on this issue. And we would make a determination based on the number of witnesses. If we need a third one for officials, we'll obviously need a third one or some portion of a third one for the minister after the break week. We could probably get all those done in those areas. I'm not sure with the addition that MP Barron's making whether or not how many witnesses beyond the ones I've sort of listed she would envisage, but that would add to that. So my original thinking was with the officials and the minister that we could get that done probably in 3 normal meetings, or there are, when you look at the calendar, there are some, the committee calendar for all the committees, there are some slots that are available, whether or not we wanted to add a meeting during the week. I know in another committee I'm on that we've done that. We've chosen to use one of those additional slots, or on another committee I'm on, we've also chosen to say, well, we'll, depending on resource availability, we'll add a 3rd hour onto the regular meetings that we already have scheduled with other issues. So I'm in the hands of the committee on that. I think how many meetings it takes depends on which method you would use. I think if you do a sort of full 2-hour meetings, it's probably with the minister 3 meetings.
Morrissey.
Thank you, Chair. We don't need extensive meetings to regurgitate what occurred. We know what occurred. Nobody's disputing that. What I, as a committee member, want to hear is from those responsible for the management of this fishery to tell this committee what they're putting in place to prevent a repeat of it this coming year. Nobody can guarantee immunity from violence. It happens. So one meeting, in my opinion, is adequate to have them explain to the committee what steps are being put in place. We can spend days going back, bringing people in. We know nobody's disputing what occurred, and what occurred is unacceptable. So to extend to have multiple meetings with the urgency, I do not agree with that, because the people fundamentally responsible is DFO, Protection and Enforcement, the RCMP, Canada Border Service Agency, LESFAC. They only get involved when somebody illegally catches them, tries to get them out of the country. The intent, yes, but nobody's disputing that. But the issue is stopping the illegal activity and the violence from occurring. CBSA has no jurisdiction there. So if the intent of the motion, and I agree with the intent, is to find out from the two federal government agencies that have the responsibility for law and order and protection of a resource, we have them in the RCMP and DFO, and that's where my interest. I know CBSA is responsible for ensuring that illegal product not crosses the border. But it shouldn't be illegal to get to the border. And that falls, Mr. Chair, under the RCMP and the Fisheries and Oceans. I do not want to dilute and confuse the serious situation that may be about to repeat itself in 2024. That's why I want to hear specifically from the most senior people within the operational side of these two ministries on what they are putting in place this coming year to ensure that what happened last year does not repeat itself.
Okay, as I understand it, there's nothing in the original motion or the amendment that determines the number of meetings yet. So this would be a further amendment. We have an amendment on the floor that we're waiting to be circulated. So before we can actually amend it to include how many meetings, we have to deal with the current amendment. And I see Mr. Kellaway online first, and then Mr. Perkins. Mr. Kellaway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Morrissey brought up what I was going to bring up in terms of the timeline for the meetings and bringing people around the table at the same time, senior officials to discuss it from a variety of perspectives, but fundamentally from one perspective or a couple of perspectives. One is safety and security enforcement and plans moving forward. So I'm with Mr. Morrissey at looking at this in terms of a meeting, making sure that we have absolutely the right people at the table for that meeting that Mr. Perkins talked about quite eloquently in terms of the experiences that he had as an MP, as a citizen in the South Shore, what his constituents faced, and other people that fish Elver, and what happened last year. So if we could bring everyone together, my experience has been with this committee, and it's not as long as most of you folks. Some of you have been here since 2015 on Fisheries Committee, but I find that it's not necessarily around quantity, it's around quality. And if we can bring people in at the same time with clear directives and the focus of the motion, look at that one meeting. The letter will come of recommendations by what I read, Mr. Perkins, through you to the chair, Mr. Perkins, a letter to the minister in terms of recommendations. I think that is more than doable. I think it will. Everyone will be ready with their questions and sub questions, and we need to have the right people around the table. And I think it's for the most part a good selection of people in the motion. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I had Mr. Hardy first and then Mr. Perkins.
I do take the point, Mr. Chair, that inclusion of the CBSA in this discussion is necessary sooner or later. And the reason I say that is that the CBSA, as has been pointed out, would be the ones that would be inspecting shipments heading out of the country. And we've heard in testimony in our IUU study, that it's pretty easy to conceal the Elvers inside of other stuff. I would suggest, though, that if we haven't done a deep enough dive into that aspect of it, that we would add a meeting to the IUU study and burrow right into that one, because I think that that's the other half of it. If we cut off the market, then all of a sudden there's really no rationale for people to be out fishing or something that they can't sell where there's no market to. And I think that piece of it has to be covered off. But the issue at hand is enforcing the laws that we have right now, given that the shipping issues and CBSA related issues are not going to be dealt with, in time to prevent the drive for a fishery this year, especially an illegal one with that kind of value attached to it. So we needn't dilute the focus by calling in the CBSA at this point. But I would suggest that we could add a meeting to the IUU study, which isn't really completed yet, to deal with that aspect of it.
Mr. Perkins, you're next.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone, for your general support for the motion. I really appreciate it. Maybe I could start with Mr. Hardy's last point in terms of I believe the IUU study is actually finished. We're supposed to do drafting instructions today, but is also on the agenda. So, but to the main issue, there's no question in my mind. The thing that is primary concern is enforcement on the rivers, right? Which is, I think, where we're all agreed that enforcement, which involves DFO, CNP, and if called in, the RCMP to back them up on the river, but also the RCMP enforcing trespassing laws. That's the on-river portion. But we have had a bit of testimony already in some of my questions in the IUU that said, and the Deputy Minister already answered and said, there is a coordination committee going on the planning for the Elver stuff that involves all three agencies, including the CBSA. And unofficially, I'm told by the Elver license holders, they've been told that they're shifting resources away from river enforcement, and this is what I want to put, towards the purchasing part of this, so the land-based purchasing where it's being purchased, and the airports and CBSA enforcement. And so we need to have CBSA here in order to say, is that really what you're doing? Because I think that's a problem. It's obviously safer, but I don't think it's like whack-a-mole, I know, right, on this thing, because there's way more people doing this than there are enforcement officers. But I think that's the whole picture. And I think it's hard to do that along with the minister in one meeting. Like that would be 1 hour for one and 1 hour for another, I think, which would do not enough justice to the depth of the discussion. So to me, it would have to be at least one meeting with the RCMP, CNP, and say, if it were a 2 hour meeting, I'm saying if it was a 2 hour meeting, CNP, RCMP, CBSA together, if they're working together on this. And then at least on the second one would be another one with the minister and officials. And whether that's in two 2 hour meetings or added on as bits and pieces to a couple other meetings, that's where I was saying we could leave that to the clerk to sort out. 4 hours, basically, yeah.
And sorry, Chair.
Mr. Morrissey?
You made a valid point on the CBSA, and I wasn't looking at it from that context, but I agree with you. Yeah.
I believe we're still waiting for the translation and translated amendment to be distributed, but it's very close. So. Ms. Barron.
Thanks, Chair. Just wanted to apologize to the clerk and the translators for the amendment that needs to be translated on short notice, but thank you for that. once this amendment is decided upon, then will we be, to make sure we're all on the same page, agreeing to add the specific amount of meetings that will be allocated to this at the end? I'm assuming we won't need to get that translated. That's pretty simple to add.
That could be done as an amendment to make sure that it's in the motion if you preferred, if you wanted to. It depends on how the committee wishes to go about that.
To do it.
Can we unanimously agree with 2 meetings as we articulated?
It,
Sure.
if it's noted in the minutes so that there's no dispute afterwards, then
Assess as chair the unanimity on the two meetings?
is there agreement with all parties that two-hour meetings would be sufficient for this? Or 4 hours? Are we all in agreement that 4 hours total would be sufficient? Mr. Hanley?
My only qualification, and not to disagree with my own team, but Mr. Perkins had said, I think, like let's get the number of hours. So an example might be extending our existing meetings by an hour each. So I just don't want to. And one of my worries is delays in the Yukon Salmon meeting that might lead to more difficulties getting our witnesses. It's been a lot of work getting our witnesses lined up. And I totally understand the urgency of this. I want to get going on it. But some flexibility, in other words, around the number of hours, according to whatever schedule we can agree on.
But is there consensus that 4 hours of meeting time for the committee would be sufficient? I see agreement all around the room. So I'll ask that that be noted in the minutes.
Too, but
Well, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it seems that it sounds good from our side.
Mr. Koimi, I see your hand up. Sorry, where your hand up is on the screen here is directly behind the reflection of a light bulb off the ceiling. You can't change that, but I have to move my head so I can see it.
Oh, sorry, I should have intervened before, Mr. Chair. Look, I just want to point out something before we go too far. I think there's some kind of agreement between all of you on 2 meetings, but just regarding CBSA, look, I think all of us want to get to the bottom of this. But regarding CBSA, like if you recall, Mr. Chair, in a lot of meetings, myself and I know my colleague, Mr. Perkins, asked a lot of questions already to CBSA on the Elber issue. They basically told us what they were involved in, how it was working with the shipping and everything. So I'm not sure we need to have them on some of those meetings, to see what's going on with the situation. And I think with all the witnesses that we've got from the last couple of months, even Mr. Perkins and other colleagues, myself, already asked some questions regarding the Elber situation. So, look, I personally think that 1 meeting is enough. I understand that you guys were thinking about maybe 2, but if we can get 1 meeting with everybody at the table at the same time, I think that we will get a good result also to see what's the problem with the situation. So just my thought, like it's hard for us, for me and Mike, we are away, so we're not like in the room, but I think 1 meeting will be enough to tackle this issue.
I think we'd gone around the room and there was consensus on 4 hours total, but if it requires less, then I think the committee could make that decision as we proceed. Mr. Morrissey.
Chair, could we suspend for another moment or two while we sort through where we're at? I think we're close, or we'll agree.
We'll
Suspend
for a few minutes.
Thank you, Chair. With discussion with my peers, I wanted to seek unanimous consent to withdraw the amendment and keep the original version and focus our attention on the amount of meetings that we'd like to move forward with, so that way we can get on with this.
Any opposed? Okay. Consent received to withdraw the amendment, so we're back to the original motion. Any further discussion on the original motion? Mr. Hanley.
It looks like, in terms of the Yukon salmon study, we only had DFO scheduled for Tuesday. So I'm happy to devote Tuesday to this meeting and maybe just get it done, and maybe we can do it in one meeting.
Because we still have an invite to the minister and officials, so the three CPS, I think one meeting with the three enforcement agencies and another meeting with the minister and officials. If the minister comes to that, great. If she can't, that's up to her schedule. It's an invitation anyway. 2 meetings, where we were, I think, before the break.
Chair, that would be, am I correct, an amendment to the motion, because the motion that we reverted to had no reference to the number of meetings.
You guys wanted the formal. I said I was more open and flexible, but that's okay. I can't amend my own motion, so.
But someone else could. Would you like to move that motion, Mr. Morrissey?
Yes, thank you. I would move an amendment to the original motion by referencing begin the study at its next scheduled meeting for one meeting.
Views on that, so. I think that's diminishing the issue.
Can I just ask a question about that to the chair? So if we go ahead with inserting one meeting, what does that mean if the committee decides that more meetings are required? Can we make a decision as committee members to add additional meetings after that time? Some clarification.
Yes, the committee is the result of their own decisions.
Master of their own.
Master of your own destiny. Mr. Perkins, did you have your hand up or not?
Yeah, I was just saying, obviously I oppose that because you're asking to have CBSA, RCMP, CNP, the minister and officials all in one meeting. And I think that's ridiculous. It's quite frankly an insult to the issue that we're doing. I think to not spend the time that we need with the three enforcement agencies and then have a discussion with the minister and officials, I actually think is an insult to anyone who cares about the fishery.
Are you suggesting a sub-amendment to the amendment?
I'd rather just vote the amendment down.
That's your problem.
Well, before we maybe go to the question, maybe I'd like, and maybe it's from our side or the other side, like, is that the intent that we would invite all those people for one meeting? Or, prioritize witness list for one meeting?
I believe all of those agencies are listed in the motion. Ms. Barron.
Thank you, Chair. A couple of thoughts. First of all, I wanted to get clarification before we go to a vote just on the last few words that Mr. Perkinson said, because I didn't hear the last few words that were said there. But the other thing is that we have heard throughout our study with the IU, like Mr. Cormier had mentioned, from CBSA officers, we have heard a lot about the Elver fisheries and what's happening and the problems already. Now, not to diminish the importance of us hearing about this and getting the clarity that we need, but I do feel that if we take into consideration the work that's already been done, putting together one meeting would offer us an opportunity to see what's happening and to decide then whether adding on more meetings is the most appropriate step forward. This is a request that's been put forward due to an emergent issue, and I think that that's a good way for us to move forward in adapting to the request that's coming forward and getting this issue on the table, but also not putting so many meetings. I can think of so many examples of studies that we've put forward where there's too many meetings attached to it, and I'd wish that we'd put less and then add it on after the fact once we knew. So I'd rather go that route and see us adding meetings if necessary once we hear from the witnesses, and we can add that on to the information that we've already received as well.
Mr. Perkins?
The way the motion will be worded with this amendment is that you would have all these witnesses in one meeting. That's the way it works. They're invited to one meeting. It's not an add-on, it's all one meeting. To have CBSA, RCMP, CNP, the minister, and officials all in one meeting. If you support the one meeting amendment, that's the way it will be. And it is standard practice. We are not coming up with a long list of other witnesses. Lord knows there are a lot of other witnesses that could come. Because I have asked a couple of questions over the last 2 months when officials have been here on other issues, is not a study on the specific issue and crisis for us. So it is a fairly standard practice that the minister and officials appear on a study, no matter how long or short, on their own, away from other officials. And we're talking about separating the policing forces on this from the bureaucratic, political, and administrative forces in 2 meetings. I don't think that's a onerous task between now and the end of February on a crisis that is going to see more violence, more people assaulted, and perhaps even the unthinkable, given the armaments that are on these rivers with people with firearms, on almost every river of Nova Scotia, on people's private property. This is not an onerous thing to ask for 2 two-hour meetings, separating the policing arm of this from the administrative arm. It's a fairly standard practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Any further? Ms. Barron? I wasn't encouraging it. I was just hoping.
I'll be quick. I do appreciate the point around the fact that as the motion is written, it will result in many people all being in one meeting, and I do question how that will work out and if that's even possible. So I just want to acknowledge that I appreciate that additional point, and I think that's shifting my mind on the best steps forward.
Thank you. I see no further hands raised, so I will call the question. All in favor of the amendment to Mr. Morrissey's amendment that the meeting or the study be for one meeting? All in favor?
Monsieur.
Bye.
Oh,
You do the roll call? Yeah.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
Mr. Callaway.
Yes.
Mr. Hardy.
Yes.
Mr. Henley.
Yes.
Mr. Cormier.
Wait.
Mr. Bragdon.
No.
Mr. Perkins.
No.
Mr. Kelly.
No.
Madame Desbiens.
Je comprends bien qu'on vote pour une.
I know we're voting on one meeting, just one. Is that the case?
Did she vote?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to say no. We can't fit all those people in one meeting.
I didn't catch what Ms. Debien's vote was.
Madame Desbiens, vous avez voté non?
You voted no?
So we have a rare tie, in which case the chair will cast a vote and vote nay. Motion is carried.
No.
Oh, or sorry, the amendment is carried.
No,
Sorry.
the amendment fails.
Or amendment, sorry, I was doing well. You got me rattled. I'm sorry, the amendment has failed, is defeated. We're now on the main motion.
Correct.
Mr. Hardy.
The main motion does not prescribe the number of meetings, so somebody should move the number of meetings be added as an amendment. Somebody. Well, you've got buddies over, I think that they're your friends, are they not?
Don't get carried away.
All right. In
In
the
the easiest-
interest of advancing this,
Oh, no, I've had Ms. Barron with her hand up, and then if you like, Mr. Kelly, if you need to.
Sorry to my friend Mr. Kelly, I don't think he's spoken yet this meeting. But I was just going to suggest that we add 2 meetings to the end of this motion. So I don't know if you actually need me to read it out or if I can just say 2.
If we could basically use most of the wording from the previous amendment to, instead of change 1 meeting to 2 meetings. Do you have that so you could read it out?
I'll read it out.
Oh, okay, the clerk has it, so she can read it out as it would be.
Just adding to the end of the motion for 2 meetings. Ms. Barron.
Ms. Barron.
Yeah. Do you want to see if you've got agreement?
Mr. Kelly, you had your hand up. I don't know whether you had.
no, I was going to propose a similar amendment, but I'm not going to speak to it.
Any question on the amendment? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion is carried as amended. Oh, pardon me. The amendment is carried. Now we're on to the motion as amended. Any speakers on the motion as amended? I didn't see any hands up. Okay, on to the vote on the motion as amended. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion as amended is carried.
Do you want to suspend to go on camera for the?
We will suspend for a few minutes while we go
Just before you do.
in camera for to move to the drafting instructions.
And
We will
the
be
Zoom
going
people
in
will have
camera.
to change
Pardon me?
links. The Zoom people will have.
And the Zoom people will have to change links apparently while we go in camera.
you.